Once upon a time, in the deep winter when snow fell like white feathers from the sky, a kind queen sat by a window framed in black wood, sewing quietly in her castle. As she worked, she pricked her finger, and 3 drops of red blood fell upon the white snow. Looking at the contrast, she wished for a child with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Soon after, her wish came true, and a beautiful baby girl was born. They named her Snow White. Sadly, the good queen died shortly after, and the king later married another woman. The new queen was very beautiful, but she was proud, cruel, and jealous. She owned a magical mirror and asked it the same question every day. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always replied, "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." As Snow White grew older, she became kind, gentle, and even more beautiful. She loved nature, played with animals, and filled the palace with joy. When the queen asked the mirror again one day, it answered, "You are very beautiful, my queen, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer." The queen was filled with rage and envy. She summoned her huntsman and ordered him to take Snow White deep into the forest and leave her there to die. The huntsman led Snow White into the dark woods, but he could not bring himself to harm her. Instead, he told her to run away and never return. Snow White ran through the forest, terrified and alone. When night fell, she sat on a fallen log and cried. Suddenly, friendly forest animals appeared and gently led her through the woods to a small cottage hidden beneath a great old tree. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Inside, everything was tiny. There were 7 small plates, 7 small cups, and 7 small beds. Hungry and tired, Snow White ate a little from each plate and fell asleep on the smallest bed. The cottage belonged to 7 dwarves who worked in the mountains mining diamonds and gold. When they returned home, they noticed signs that someone had been there. Carefully, they searched the house and found Snow White sleeping. She was so gentle and beautiful that they let her rest. When Snow White awoke, she told them her story. The dwarves agreed she could stay with them if she cooked and cleaned. Snow White gladly accepted. She kept the house clean, cooked delicious meals, and filled the cottage with warmth and happiness. The dwarves warned her never to let anyone inside, as the queen was wicked. Back at the castle, the queen discovered through her mirror that Snow White was still alive. Disguising herself as a poor peddler, she traveled to the cottage and tricked Snow White into letting her in. She tightened a lace bodice so tightly that Snow White collapsed. Luckily, the dwarves returned in time and saved her. Angry that her plan failed, the queen tried again with a poisoned comb. Once more, Snow White was tricked and fell unconscious, but the dwarves rescued her again. Finally, the queen made a poisoned apple, half safe and half deadly. Disguised as a peasant woman, she convinced Snow White to take a bite. This time, Snow White fell into a deep sleep that could not be broken. The dwarves were heartbroken. Believing she was dead, they placed her in a beautiful glass coffin so they could always look upon her. She lay there as beautiful as ever, while animals and dwarves kept watch. One day, a prince traveling through the forest saw Snow White in the glass coffin. Struck by her beauty, he leaned down and gently kissed her. The spell was broken, and Snow White awoke. They fell in love, and Snow White agreed to marry him. The dwarves rejoiced, and all were invited to the grand wedding at the prince's castle. Snow White wore a gown of gold and white silk, and the kingdom celebrated with joy. When the evil queen heard of Snow White's happiness, she fled into the mountains and was never seen again. Snow White and the prince ruled their kingdom with kindness and lived happily ever after.